action is the only thing that's going to give you that confidence to continue moving forward. So wherever you're at in your journey, I just recommend, continuing to reinforce that belief and to take action in things that you truly do believe in. And through that, you'll continue to grow your confidence in everything you're doing with what you're building.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And today I have a special guest that I met through social. And I always appreciate people who take massive action and just reach out. He reached out to me when we were having our Play Bigger women's event and was looking for some speakers. But what I love is his drive. And I'm always an advocate for young people who are willing to just kind of go for it. He moved to Arizona and built one of the largest entrepreneur communities in the state and has impacted hundreds of people in less than 2 years. And when I got to see him shine at his event, you can't help but notice his grit and his heart to make a difference. And it's why I love supporting his community. I instantly felt like he was a little brother to me. He's the founder and CEO of Arizona Entrepreneurs. Welcome to the show, Devin Butler.
Thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate that introduction.
So we're going to talk about this community of yours. Take me back. Did you just wake up one day and said hey, I'm going to start this community, and what a great name?
Yeah. So it's super interesting how it all came to fruition. So really how it started. So I moved here from Michigan about 3 years ago. And when I got out here, I started a couple different businesses, but throughout that process of starting my first couple companies, I had no entrepreneurship direction. I had no mentors. I was just trying to figure out everything out by myself. So it really came to life because it's exactly what I was looking for. I started to realize that I need to get around other entrepreneurs and people that I can learn from. And I started looking into a lot of different networking communities and seeing what was kind of out there. And I found a couple that I meshed with well and that I was able to meet some people, but I couldn't find a consistent event or community that I was involved in where I could get a ton of value, meet a ton of people, and do it on a consistent basis. So it's funny because I was literally just looking to connect with people. There was one specific time where I typed in on Instagram, I typed in Arizona Entrepreneurs, thought there'd be an account. I could go DM everyone and start to build some relationships, but there was no business, but no Instagram account. And then that just kind of started getting the ball rolling. So I started putting out some content, realized there was no LLC, no website. And so basically after I realized all those things, I kind of thought to myself that this community that I'm looking for, what I'm trying to do within the entrepreneurial space doesn't necessarily exist. And I started just connecting the dots and realizing that a lot of people were looking for exactly what I was looking for as well, and put it into action and started Arizona Entrepreneurs.
You make it sound so easy that you just wake up one day and you found and you created some content and you connected with some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship, even here locally. Right. And even your speakers on stage have been some of the biggest names. How did you develop those relationships? Or did they just come asking you to be at your event?
So all of those relationships were really developed, one, from mutual connections. So a lot of them were introductions from people that I had met prior who introduced me to these speakers. But typically the first summit we ever hosted in January, that's where I got connected with a lot of high level entrepreneurs and speakers like that in the space. And that opened doors to, getting connected with a lot more people. But I think it really comes down to being able to lead with value. And it's hard a lot of times when you don't have a specific thing that you feel like you can lead with. But this is a perfect example, having a podcast where you can bring on a guest, highlight them. So that's kind of what I did with the summit, the first summit we did, to basically where I got all these speakers and was able to position them in front of our audience of entrepreneurs, which they found valuable. But yeah, it's a process. And as you know, being a great networker and connector is just, meeting as many people as possible, getting introduced and making that ask that, I want to get connected with these people and that I have something of value to provide in return.
For those that are listening, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening, some of them are introverts and some of them are just not great at networking. since you've been able to like rub elbows with a lot of people, what tips or advice would you give them that want to network and build these strong relationships?
So the thing that I have found to be the most beneficial when it comes to networking and making connections, and this is really how we structure our events to where it's a very relaxed environment, to where it's not, stuffy and you feel like you have to be super professional, but is just making friends with them, coming from a place to where it's not necessarily like, what can I get from this, but how can I lead with value? What can I do to support and provide value to this person I'm trying to build a relationship with? But at the end of the day, just coming from a standpoint of I'm just trying to make friends. And that's how I've seen like a lot of entrepreneurs thrive in our community, to where they come to the events and just, are nice to people and have amazing conversations and meet people, where it leads into a friendship. And then from there, there's so many different collaboration opportunities and ways that you can work together. But I think that's honestly the biggest piece of advice I can give, because I feel like, especially in this entrepreneur space, a lot of people feel like they need to come very professionally and act a certain type of way. But I feel like if you're just your authentic self and try to build friends, that's going to, show a lot more than it is to, just try to put on a face and be professional with everyone.
I love how Devin just makes it so easy. And so I know what some people are thinking, like, what if like you had the opportunity to meet Elon Musk? Like, how do you just become friends when they barely have any like minutes or time?
I mean, that's honestly such a good question. And so a perfect example of this is I met Joe Powell. She spoke at this summit a couple weekends ago, and I met him probably 6 months prior at a mastermind. And he was someone I really looked up to in the entrepreneur space, built something similar to what I have, but at a very high level. And I had that anxiety to where it was like, oh my gosh, like I gotta act right. I gotta, build this relationship, but he does not have a lot of time. He's way ahead of me in business and is working on a lot of big projects, to where it's like, you start to get that imposter syndrome of like, okay, like, does he value my time essentially? And with that, he basically told me exactly how to do it, which is actually interesting because he's one of the best networkers and connectors in the world. But he was like, the two things that are most important to me right now are Genius Network, which is his entrepreneur community, and Genius Recovery, which is his recovery nonprofit for recovering addicts. And he told me those are the two most important things for him. So if he meets someone, if they can't provide value in those two areas, then he would still love to, see however he can support, but he doesn't have enough time on his plate to just be having conversations that don't move the needle for those two businesses. So when he said that to me, it just gave me a perfect in. It's like, okay, I know Arizona entrepreneurs could provide value to both those organizations, whatever that looks like, but figuring out how I can lead from a place to where it's like, how can I support Joe and his vision for these two different companies? And so with all, high level people like that, and I'm still working through it, to where when I get in the room with people like that, it is difficult to try to leave an imprint to where they're going to remember you and want to continue to have conversations with you. But I think that's the easiest thing. And what Joe talks a lot about is like finding pain points in, really what they're working on and seeing how you can support in those different areas. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. So you brought up imposter syndrome. Have you had to deal with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like it comes in a lot of different areas. One is definitely that, to where you're trying to connect with someone who is at a way different level than you and trying to bridge that gap and see how you can build that relationship. But for me, the first instance of where I really experienced imposter syndrome, like in a big way, was when I started Arizona Entrepreneurs, because prior to that, I started 3 different companies and they all miserably failed. So I had this contradiction of, okay, I built this audience on Instagram for Arizona business owners, but how am I going to launch this community and start to bring all these people together when I haven't even built a successful company myself? So there was a lot of self-talk of like, okay, I'm not capable of doing this. But I talked to a mentor at the time and he's like, Devin, you are just as capable as anyone. All you have to do is facilitate. You don't need to be a business expert to start this community. You bring on experts to teach and you just facilitate and bring everybody together in one room. So once I started to realize that, I basically just, powered through it and started to put the pieces together. And through that process, it built a lot of confidence and made me realize that I am totally capable of doing this. And it came up again when like the first time public speaking, it's like, who's going to listen to me? I'm not credible to speak on stage and stuff like that. But then after I did it for the first time, I just started to become more and more comfortable with it. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that I've learned throughout entrepreneurship is that whenever it starts to get scary and it's like something that's really pushing your comfort zone, the things that come on the other side of that are so much more powerful.
So good. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 25.
And I absolutely love it. So who did you need to become for people to actually take you serious and get behind your mission?
I think I ultimately just needed to fully believe in myself and realize that I was completely capable of doing it. So it was really just a shift in my mindset. So that's like really the person that I needed to come in with that, developing that confidence. It was really just taking action and starting to put things into action to where, after things start to slowly work out, you just build up your confidence and realize that you're just as capable of anyone to do that. So yeah, I think it was just through taking action and starting to see results, and it slowly started to build up my confidence. But it's all internal and just realizing that you're capable of doing big things.
Yeah. And you reach out. I mean, that's how we met. I mean, how often do you do that? And are you ever scared of like reaching out and going like, they may not answer, or they may think like, does anything ever go through your head? And like, how do you like filter out some of that stuff?
I mean, early on, 100%. But nowadays, it's just at the end of the day, like, what does it hurt to reach out? Even if they say no, or they don't have enough time, or whatever that may be, you're never going to know unless you ask. So especially in this space of trying to get connected with people who can be on our stages and just higher level entrepreneurs that I want to be connected with, it's just a matter of reaching out, seeing what happens. If it doesn't lead to anything, then so be it. Maybe it does down the road, but it doesn't hurt to just ask and try to put your foot in the door to get connected with those people.
So good. And so what has been, since you starting this community, and it's a fairly young company, right?
Yeah.
What has been the most rewarding thing for you of starting Arizona Entrepreneurs?
Honestly, I would say it's the stories that I hear from the people that come to our events and that are involved with the community. So there was actually a couple, they were at the summit as well. So her name is Jamie, and she came to one of our first Arizona Entrepreneurs events, and she drove all the way up from Tucson for that event. And she came to like majority of the events after that. But she told me to start off, she like met a bunch of clients and met a bunch of people, and it was super well for her. And then afterwards, I told her the business coaches that I was working with, and she ended up hiring them on. And just last month, they moved their entire family from Tucson to Phoenix, and they're working out of the same office as the business coaches that I had. And those coaches like helped them to scale significantly, because before they were doing more like project management. Now they're working as like fractional COOs for company. And yeah, they've built up their business to where they're absolutely crushing it, move their entire family up here to be around the network and everything we're doing. And it's just crazy to see the ripple effect of them, of Jamie just coming to an event, getting connected with some people, and to now that their business is thriving, they're out here and super involved with everything. But just hearing so many stories of like that, to where, we're just bringing all these amazing people together, and the relationships they're building, and that the impact it's actually having on their lives.
Yeah, you spoke about coaches, and I'm a big believer in coaches and like growth. How do you find your coaches today? Who are you surrounded by? Do you have multiple coaches? Let's talk about coaching for a little bit.
Yeah, so I had two coaches that I work with, and they were people that I was connected with prior. And I actually ran into one of them at the coffee shop and saw like all the systems they were building out for a client and everything they were doing. And it was like, I need that within Arizona Entrepreneurs, because there's things going everywhere. So they helped me really like dial in our processes and everything we're doing with our company. And that was the first paradigm shift, to where I cut down the learning curve of trying to figure out all that out myself and had them help me to implement it. And that's really where I realized the value of working with coaches. And so those are the only coaches I work with like officially, but throughout the friend group and the community that I've created, like really just my friends, they're all entrepreneurs doing really big things in business. So I always just have a group of people to go to whenever I have questions or, want to mastermind as far as business goes.
Yeah. And so what has been the most challenging part of building this community?
The most challenging part, and this is with any business, but especially early on when it's you're trying to get traction and trying to figure things out. So early on, I remember like to launch the company, I had no idea what I was doing to like actually launch a business. But to launch the company, I hosted like this big Zoom call. There was probably like 50 people on it, like a networking Zoom call. And then afterwards, like I made the membership offer and like everything we were doing at Arizona Entrepreneurs. And I got to preface this, part of it was a mastermind. So there needs to be multiple people in a mastermind in order for it to work. But I made the pitch at the end of the call, and one person signed up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? So like early on, it was just hard to get traction and get people to believe in what I was doing and to start to build that brand around what Arizona Entrepreneurs is. But over time, just through hosting different experiences, and I honestly think a lot of it came from hosting in-person experiences and actually bringing people together in person. And that's where we gained a lot of traction. But early on, it's just the grind of trying to make things work, trying to get people to believe in what you're doing. And then over time, as things start to do start to work out, that's when, a lot more people start to believe in your vision and everything that you're creating.
Well, speaking of believing, what is like Arizona Entrepreneurs' goals? What's their mission? And how do you separate this from any other networking group that, and there's a lot of them out there.
100%. So really the goals for Arizona Entrepreneurs, like I want to position this as the entrepreneur hub for Arizona specifically right now. I'd like to expand out of Arizona eventually, but being able to where any entrepreneur that gets involved with AZE could get value, whether that's through relationships they're building, the education that they're learning, being able to get on stages and speak at our events, but being able to create this as the hub of entrepreneurs for Arizona. And something that I shared at the summit is also being able to incorporate other entrepreneur events and things that are going around in the Valley to where, we could have a whole calendar of everything that they can get involved with. It doesn't just have to be stuff that we're hosting. So really continuing to expand on that mission and to bring entrepreneurs together at a big scale. That's the main focus as far as, what we're trying to do moving forward.
I love obviously everything that you're building. And I know that with communities, sometimes it can be challenging and also very, very rewarding. How do you continue to keep your members engaged?
It's a good question because with communities, that's the most important thing is being able to, keep them communicating in between events, especially, but to where they're always getting value when they're a part of it. So the biggest thing is we do events on a consistent basis in person. So doing those frequently, bring everybody together in person consistently. And then outside of that, we have a Discord area for all of our members to where they can communicate in between things, ask questions, communicate with one another. And then we also do frequent Zoom calls. So just being able to provide an array of things to where people can get plugged in and can get access to this community, ask questions when they need, and just have that support throughout the entrepreneurship journey. Because I ultimately think that's the most important thing. And it's exactly what I was looking for when I moved out here and had no guidance. If I just had a community of people to go to with these questions and things that I was going through, it would have been, honestly, it would have saved me a lot of time and energy.
Of those 3 companies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, you're very mature for your age. And I love that all the things that you're up to. Do you do this all yourself? I'm sure people are asking that are listening, or do you have a team? What does that look like today?
So I have a team right now. So I basically have someone in charge of operations. So they run really all the operations and help me just organize all my thoughts and everything we're trying to implement. I have a community director. So she's in charge of the membership. She does a lot with the in-person events as well, but just making sure that the membership is running fluidly. And if anybody has questions, she's there to answer them. And then a social media manager. So it's a small team right now, but those are the 3 areas: operations, social media, and then someone running the entire community and the membership.
Well, you would never think it's just 3 and you run it really, really well from what I can see on the outside. So you do a lot of events. What is some of the things that you've learned? Because I know events aren't always easy. What are some of the things that for those, and I know some of our entrepreneurs, they do events or they're starting to do events, what are some of the things that you've learned from hosting events?
Throughout the process, like I really realized, at least for the demographic that we're serving, it is like a younger group of entrepreneurs for the most part, but we just focus on the experience that we're providing. So when you're putting the event together, like my biggest piece of advice is like, what things can you implement into that specific event to make an amazing experience for everyone? So naturally, the most valuable thing is going to be the connections and the relationships. So it's just a matter of getting, a lot of quality people in the room. But then outside of that, what different elements can you add to the event to make it an amazing experience? And I think you asked this question earlier on that I forgot to answer. So like, how do we differentiate ourselves from, other networking groups and communities out here? And I think it's exactly that, to where when I was going to a lot of those networking events, when I was first starting up, it just seemed almost like outdated and old school as far as how the events were ran, to where I couldn't go to the event and actually have a good time. It was more so go to the event just to make connections. And so we try to incorporate both with what we do to create an experience to where people can go and have an amazing time. But on top of that, they're also meeting connections that can improve their business and help change their life.
Yeah, I always say that, it's never about the strategy. It's always about the relationship that will get you far. You can have all the strategies in the world. You can even go into all the courses. But I would say that when I look back at my journey, it's always been about the relationship and the connections that got me to where I was at.
I totally agree. I could say the same thing.
Yeah. And so what has been one of your, as you look back in your journey, and like I said, you're young, and I can't even imagine where it's going to be, 5 years from now, even 3 years from now. What's one lesson that you look back that has impacted you the most in your journey?
I would say, the one that's coming to the top of my mind right now, just because I was in that place of not really fully believing in, it's more so myself, because I believed in the concept of Arizona Entrepreneurs before I started it, but having those internal battles of I'm not capable of starting this community, but just realizing that action is the only thing that's going to give you that confidence to continue moving forward. So throughout everything with Arizona Entrepreneurs and through building it, I just noticed whenever that fear comes up to where I'm nervous about taking that step or taking that leap, and I decide to take action, it always leads to a powerful outcome. So whoever's listening to this, wherever you're at in your journey, I just recommend, continuing to reinforce that belief and to take action in things that you truly do believe in. And through that, you'll continue to grow your confidence in everything you're doing with what you're building.
I love that, because we all experience fear. We all experience the what ifs. We all experience some type of imposter syndrome. It comes at different stages, even when you're starting new and you're an experienced entrepreneur. So what is next for Devin or for Arizona Entrepreneurs? What are you most excited about that you're working on?
So a couple of things. So November 10th, we're hosting our 2-year anniversary event. So I'm excited for that, just because, we're celebrating 2 years and it's going to be an awesome event. But outside of that, just continue to build out this community, to refine our membership in the different areas that we're providing value to entrepreneurs, and make sure that we're doing that at a very high level. So continuing to build upon what we've already created. And 2023 timeframe, I've had a lot of people reach out that are in the process of creating communities, or they already have a community and they're trying to scale it up and to improve upon it. And so I really feel a calling to help and to support other people who want to create communities, and to consult and to mentor them, based on what we've done in the past 2 years, to be able to essentially use the same exact blueprint to build it in different regions. So that is in the near future in the works as well.
So exciting. And if people wanted to connect with you, where can they connect with Devin?
Yeah, so our Instagram's where we're most active at. So our Arizona Entrepreneurs is just Arizona Entrepreneurs spelled out. That's the AZE Instagram. And then my personal is Devin Ray Butler. And then outside of that, our website's just ArizonaEntrepreneurs.com. And that has all the information on the community and everything we're doing.
And we will definitely put that in the show notes. And as we wrap up, there's always a question that I ask every single entrepreneur that comes, or guest that comes on the show, is what does Devin do to play bigger in business and in life?
Ooh, I love that question. So for me, it's honestly just really, I think all businesses, I know all businesses, it is a reflection of who you are as a business owner. So instead of constantly just looking for new strategies and everything like that, what I try to focus on is, how can I improve internally? How can I become a better leader of my team and everything that I'm doing? And what disciplines and actions can I implement into my day to be, a better business owner, but also a better person? And so I think for me, it's really just developing more internally, working on myself, and just becoming the best CEO possible so I can continue to play bigger and provide more value to people.
So good. Well, my friend, I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on our show. I'm always fascinated by all the things that you do, especially at such a young age. I appreciate you. I appreciate your DM, because we would not be having this podcast interview, and I would not be an Arizona member or entrepreneur member, or I would have not gone to your event had you not reached out. So thank you, because even in that one event, I have met so many different people that I've gotten to connect with after that event. And that's why I believe communities like this are so important and vital to your success. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. And I cannot wait to keep playing bigger with you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate you.